matchup.
Thanks so much, Aggro. And again, congratulations to Team Elevate for securing that big win over Strictly Business, progressing them to tomorrow's matches of the semi-finals, which I'm sure that they are definitely looking forward to. A lot of spicy matchups that could be coming out potentially. How do you feel about some of these games so far?
I think that we've seen some exciting stuff, some not so exciting stuff, but also some exciting stuff. I think we started off the day really nicely, and game number 2 was also a little bit interesting. Game number 4, I think there is kind of an expected outcome of Obey, but we shall see. We shall see.
I mean, it's definitely nothing to be underestimating, though. Obey, as confident as they have seemed the entire time they've been at LAN so far, just the days leading up to it, throughout player interviews and just being around the studios, I've noticed that air of confidence, but not over cockiness, because they still don't want to underestimate their competition. They don't want to risk dropping this set that would progress them into tomorrow's matches. And like I mentioned, we're seeing already Astral Authority, Soar Gaming, and Elevate that will be progressing to the best of 5 semi-final stage tomorrow. And everybody wants to participate in the semis because we all know semis leads to finals, and finals are probably the most pivotal part here.
No, I mean, obviously that's where you want to take over the money. But when it comes down to it, Obey, I think you hit it. I think you said it very nicely. Confident, but not cocky. These guys have a lot of history behind them. Long time in the SCL. We're talking the original dynasty of the console world, of previously under the tag of Eager, now parting ways and now Obey, but still the same team. I mean, I've been seeing Dwurst, Delta Marine, Jelly, and these guys come out since day one. Air Cougar, Astro Squared, if you remember way back when. This guy has been the perennial player on the console since we started doing it, and that's, you gotta have confidence when you're that just embedded in the scene.
Not to mention that there's probably a decent bit of pressure on the side of Obey to perform, considering that they are the former world champions for the console scene, which means that teams are probably expecting a lot out of this roster to once again turn up and perform. I think a lot of people are trying to predict that this team might be the one that we're seeing in the finals matches already, and depending on how they play today, considering their slightly shaky start of the season, I mean, their spring split hasn't gone ideally, to say the least.
Sure, but I mean, you take a look across at the PC scene and you see the same thing out of defending world champions, Energy. Dwurst, pbnjellly, and Air Cougar, 72, are all, like I said, longtime members of the squad. And then they go ahead, not recently, but they add myflin, sort of the obvious class clown to the crew. And it creates this interesting dynamic of, you've got a lot of responsibility in people like Jelly and Dwurst, and you've got a lot of just game sense out of people like Delta and Air Cougar, and then myflin kind of ties everything together, and you really create this really positive roster that just finds the wins when it matters. And I think that's the key there. We've seen these guys during the regular season, and then we've seen these guys turn up at even the old MLG lands, and they always wind up making it count when it needs to.
Who would you consider to be the commandeering or commanding person on this team as far as shot calling is concerned?
I think you obviously look towards Jelly, but when it comes down to it, I think it winds up being a little bit more of a blend between everybody else. Cougar always speaks up a little bit here and there, and at the end of the day, Myflin's just going to kind of yell and scream and see what happens. But it's definitely more of a team effort when they want to shot call and figure out where the teams and where the objectives are going to go.
Well, one thing that I have noticed, though, at least from all the teams that have played so far today, is shouting seems to be crucial as far as getting into the heads of your opponents. Once you break down their mental head game, I mean, that spells disaster in the long run. So how do you think that this kind of roster is going to be capable of really just playing head games?
I gotta just laugh at that one, Taco, because the answer is, if you follow the SEL scene at all, absolutely yes. Like I said, I've seen these guys a number of times going back, turning the page to MLG New Orleans, MLG Columbus, and these guys were the same guys they are today, yelling, screaming, hooting, and hollering. Myflin's gonna ask you, you know, what's it like being in silver, and Jelly and Air Cougar are just gonna scream, we did it, we're better than you, and that's what they're doing right then and there. But across the way, I don't know about the other guys.
Just a bunch of console hooligans when you boil it all down. But we do see Waldrom on the other side of the spectrum, and I'm definitely interested to find out how this team, Optimus Gang, is going to match up against such a prominent established team in the NA side of things.
Yeah, and specifically speaking about Waldrom, I gotta say I am just very cautious, cautiously optimistic, I'll say, because Optimus Gang is basically the new blood of the European scene. Rival for a long time, Watson and friends have kind of just sat there and said, okay, we are the best team, we are the de facto representation of Europe. And Optimus Gang, once upon a time called TMNT, these guys came on and really showed up saying, hey, look, we're the new blood, we can actually do this as well, let's dance. And they did very well. One of the biggest key factors, however, to this team for me is Osric, who's not here, and Waldrom's here in his place. Now, I don't know if Waldrom is good, bad, or otherwise, but I do know that Osric was a keystone for this team. So if you're at home rooting for TMNT, you got your fingers, your toes, you got everything crossed, hoping that this guy can fill what Osric does.
Well, do you think that that's already going to affect the team's mentality, just knowing that they have Waldrom as opposed to Osric representing them?
So that's the thing, is that honestly, that's the litmus test. Optimus Gang have to be confident in what they can do. 50-meter fly. Yes, I actually said it, not 50-millimeter fly. 50-meter fly, the guy, is a really big part of this team. 50-meter fly and Mr. Turtle are really going to have to really hold things down. And Waldrom has to make sure not to get in his own head when you're out there trying to fill somebody else's shoes. I mean, what do you think it was like for the guy stepping in to take Agro's place when he left? So when you got big shoes like that to fill, it kind of weighs in on your mind.
And filling in is certainly what Optimus Gang are looking to do. They want to try and ensure that they get the picks that they want, ideally, for their side of things. And we've seen already from one EU team today, as far as Rival was concerned, they weren't really prioritizing the Scotty bands or the Susano bands. Obey Alliance with the first pick, though, the opportunity is all there.
I'd really like to see a Susano first pick coming out from Obey, seeing as that's the one left open, really strong jungle presence, and that's where it's going to go right to Susano. No chance in letting that head over to OG.
And I know for a fact that Obey is probably super excited to be able to lock down such a dominant factor in the jungle role. I don't think we've yet to see a bad Susano performance so far from the teams that have been able to pick it up.
No, and it's interesting because I think a lot of people would just say, okay, well, this god is just overpowered. At the end of the day, he's pretty strong. But I think that it just so happens that the junglers that we have right now at our disposal are very adept at the character, and he does a very good job of setting the pace of the game as well.
I do like the response, though, from Optimus Gang, opting for the Sylvanus Medusa. It could potentially be Sylvanus Medusa duo lane, not necessarily certain whether or not the Medusa might be flex picked into the mid lane role, but I'd imagine you would want a high pressure duo just to try and help control that duo lane side of the jungle to prevent Susano from letting into that snowball lead.
Exactly. Sylvanus and Medusa are very adept when it comes to wave clear. They're able to not only knock down the wave, but that translates, as you mentioned, into the jungle. By way of control of the lane, you then extend that control into the actual objectives on that side of the map. So Susano's going to come heavy mobility, heavy control. Well, if Sylvanus and Medusa are pushing your dual lane onto their tower, they have all the time in the world to start rotating into the jungle, and that really stunts what Susano wants to do on that side.
And those early rotations, like you mentioned, will certainly be crucial as far as ensuring that Obey Alliance doesn't get completely out of control. But early pressure, Cabrakan, Isis. That's all I'm thinking.
Cabrakan is going to be able to control things from either a solo or a support role. This is still a flex pick for Obey Alliance. Susano likely to be in the jungle. Isis in the middle lane, however. This is a very, very exciting pick for me personally. Delta Marine 72 is one of these guys that has a fantastic Isis. She's got a lot of push, so she's currently in the meta because of that. But Isis is a character that has a high skill ceiling. I think a lot of people can wing gust and hit a spirit ball every now and then. But if you can make use of all of her crowd control, all of her ultimate ability, and the way that she can just control an area, a team fight, and objectives, she becomes a different god almost completely, and that's what Delta Marine is known for.
Do you think that it's a little bit risky, though, for Obey Alliance to lock away that Isis within the first 3 picks? Because now that leaves Optimus Gang with the opportunity to try and counter it with a lockdown potential.
I really and truly don't think so. I mean, when you're thinking about lockdown potential versus Isis, you're thinking about silences. Thanatos is still on the board, and Optimus Gang doesn't have a jungle. That might be worthy. But again, with Osric out of the conversation, nobody really knows what Waldrom's going to do. There are other options that can shut down the Isis, Awilish and Hunbats notably, which are banned out by Obey.
And do you think that could actually be a slight advantage for Optimus Gang, considering that nobody's really aware of what Waldrom's going to pull out?
Yeah. And I say that cautiously because, yes, it is true. What is unknown is scary. But as soon as it becomes known, well, what happens if it's bad?
Well, not to mention that it might be unknown, but we do know what Susano is capable of, and that's more than enough of a threat to put Waldrom in a really tight position. Execution is probably going to be the key component here if Optimus Gang want to look to try and make a win out of this.
Ram. Ooh, okay. Air Cougar really trying to flex right here. He brings up the Ram when he wants to play business. Nemesis, look at that. That's the selection for the jungle. Very interesting. Nemesis is a character that you really gotta do it right. You really gotta do it right. But with the double Guardian coming out, plus an Isis who's usually a little bit more in the control than the pure burst situation, I like the Nemesis selection a lot. Provided it's played well, I think it'll be very successful here.
Execution is going to be the thing to look out for on the side of Optimus Gang. But, Tom, looking at these drafts already, who do you think is going to take it?
Listen, I have been the biggest fan of Optimus Gang. I am one of the biggest TMNT cheerleaders out there, but they're up against Obey Alliance. I think regardless of the draft, this is an exhibition match for Optimus Gang. They're really just trying to see how strong they are and how much they can bring to Obey.
Well, I am definitely excited to see how these guys are going to face off against the former world champions. So now, ladies and gentlemen, it'll be Aggro and Tolly to take it away.
Thank you very much, TNT. We're here ready for the cast, and again, it's going to be Obey up against Optimus Gang. I'm looking at this draft, Tolly, and I'm like, ooh, Obey got Susano. Ooh, and they got Cabrakan. Oh, they got Terra too.
Oh, just so much control. You sprinkle in a little bit of Isis to that mix as well. And it's like, where does the draft really go wrong here for Obey Alliance? And I just don't necessarily see a flaw.
I mean, Optimus Gang is asking if they can sell items for more sets of purification beads against this draft. It's like, can I just not buy items, rely on base damage, and get 6 sets of beads instead? Because Lord knows I'm going to need them. It is going to be IamDwurst on Cabrakan in the solo. It's going to be Terra support for Jelly. Do you like this sort of orientation for Obey's draft, or would you rather see those 2 Guardians swapped?
I think I would have liked to see them swap because you would have the Terra ultimates more frequently from that solo position, considering if you go the cooldown option, as well as a higher level ultimate. Not to mention, if Jelly was playing the Cabrakan, he would make his presence known more impactfully in these early skirmishes between your mid, jungle, and support. That's true, and there's not a lot of dashes. I mean, there is a lot of dashes, but no leaps outside of Xing to get out of that Cabrakan ultimate in the mid. Only Xing going to be able to get out of there. Jelly forced to use meditation early after Cougar looked like he was going to win that poke battle, but it ends up on the back end. Surprised to see Mr. Turtle not knock down that obelisk. It's going to allow Air Cougar to just heal up in it. Mr. Jelly was doing a good job standing in front of Welshbeast to prevent his enhance, but you can't stand in front of Mr. Turtle on the Sylvanus. He has those AoE enhance, but electing to basically clear the wave faster, because if you hit 3 minions, you're basically out DPSing the level 1 heal that Terra can provide.
So Mr. Turtle really focusing more on the wave than the opposition early on. It's going to pay dividends as Optimus Gang end up hitting level 2 a little bit earlier than their counterparts. Obey still has to handle this wave, but instead of going to try and invade the jungle, Mr. Turtle and welshbeastq stick around to try and get a kill.
Doing a decent amount of poke, forcing out that 50 gold health potion from Air Cougar, as well as doing enough of a denial from the gold of that wave. So just because you could have gotten some gold under your own pocket in terms of invading the red or the purple, you're basically completing the same task in a different form by denying your opposition the gold instead.
Going back to Waldrom here on this, the jungler for Optimus Gang. Again, Osric, the usual guy there, but wasn't able to make this land, so it's going to be the substitute Waldrom. I do love this Nemesis selection up against the double Guardian comp from Obey. My only concern with this pick, Tolly, is that while there's a lot of burst and good follow-up off of the Nemesis ultimate, that shield probably not going to last for very long between all the CC that Obey has available to them. Remember, the Retribution shield goes on cooldown as soon as you get CC.
As long as you time that shield correctly, you don't necessarily have to worry about it. If you can bait out your frontliners, having to bait out Mr. Turtle, or Predators having 2 Guardians of their own, not to mention having the sustain options of those Wisps is going to provide to be really fruitful for Optimus Gang, but you can't neglect the fact that Predators also can mitigate a lot of damage on the enhance with a Furious Roar.
Despite getting out pressured in that dual lane, Obey secure both of their left side buffs, the purple and the red. Could say the same for Optimus Gang, though you expected them to get their own with the pressure in that dual lane going their way. Obey have not looked like themselves for quite a bit of this spring split, Tolia. They looked okay, but only finding 3 wins throughout. Was there anything that really stood out from their play that really hurt them?
I think that they were just kind of taking it a little bit more comfortably compared to other teams. They weren't taking the online phase as seriously in preparations, that they knew that they could still qualify to the LAN, get in a good seeding, and be able to really do whatever they want, because they have the most experience out of any console team when it comes to LANs.
Specifically, IamDwurst, and IamDwurst. These guys have been there since the very beginning of console Smite. They've been to every LAN that has been held, so you know that they're going to be comfortable in the setting. myflin and Delta Marine, it feels like they've been with these guys forever, but it was only for Season 3. Season 2, that was Matt Koiz and Sam Bam bidding up that mid jungle, but the way that myflin and Delta Marine have come in and to synergize with this roster has been particularly impressive. There's the pull onto Waldrom, taking a good amount of damage there between Delta Marine and myflin, but no kills just yet, and that's on purpose from Obey. They're really more worried about poking out Waldrom and trying to get his speed buff.
And that's not a bad idea considering the timing of this. Having a lot of pressure in that soul lane, IamDwurst was able to out-clear Predators, and with that advantage for Obey, they wouldn't really contest the speed buff, giving it up, going to push out the mid lane. But the question is, what do they get in return? The red and the purple is not up to steal away from Obey.
This is one of those moments where I'm just excited to see how Optimus Gang can hold their own against the world champions. I don't think anyone's expecting them to come in and really pull off the upset here. I think that'd be a crazy storyline if they did. But it's just a matter of, can they play their own game? A lot of times you'll see teams that are going up against these, long-standing teams that have been around, won a world championship, get a little nervous, but hopefully Optimus Gang can play their own game. mrturtlei forced into the wrath of Terra after the CC chain between the Susano, Isis, and Terra was just too strong for him to handle.
All those abilities used by Obey Alliance took about 75% of the health from mrturtlei, and none of those cooldowns or abilities were ultimates.
Yeah.
The Typhoon, Circle of Protection was still intact. Terra's Blessing not even deployed either, so mrturtlei got a little bit of a damage check to see what's truly waiting for him once those abilities come out.
And that's why he goes for these reinforced Greaves. Getting some CCR really needed in this matchup. The protection's great. There's a couple dots, myflin in particular with that Bluestone Pendant, going to be applying a lot of dots to stack up that reinforced Greaves passive, giving you some extra protections each time you take damage. But really, I think that the main thing for these boots this time around is the crowd control reduction. We saw how long mrturtlei was locked in place there. Anything to get him out of that CC earlier is going to be helpful.
Definitely worth the bang for the buck. At 1,400 gold, you get 20% crowd control reduction, mitigating a lot of that crowd control, especially considering that if you hit the same target with multiple CCs, it's going to have that diminishing return. So having that extra 20% makes it even more impactful for mrturtlei to stay alive and get off his ultimate to disrupt those chains.
Obey willing to just take this game pretty slowly right now. We're almost 6 minutes in. Still no kills, though Obey has gotten the better end of the farm game, courtesy of a couple invades on that right-hand side. The only lane that seems to continue to have pressure for Obey is the mid lane. The side lane so far for Optimus Gang getting the better end of the push.
IamDwurst can't really do anything in the soul lane at this point. As long as the knockup is available from Predators, he's going to be able to knock up those tremors every single time off of cooldown. But this time it's myflin and Delta Marine trying to make a play happen in the soul lane.
IamDwurst had a ward there, or excuse me, it's Optimus Gang who had a ward there and saw the rotation coming in from both Delta Marine and myflin. Heads up play by myflin to head onto this right-hand side because he knew that his solo laner getting poked out a little bit, just as he'll do to Waldrom. There, here comes the Whirlwind of Rage and Steel, and IamDwurst is going to go for a ride. The Nemesis ultimate right on top of myflin at the Typhoon waiting. Waldrom going to be able to secure first blood, and myflin is going to have to retreat too low to continue to fight.
Terra's Blessing just a little too late. Delta Marine and Jelly around the corner, but both of the solo and junglers out of Optimus Gang are going to retreat into safety. But despite taking a spill, IamDwurst's life has not been in vain. Obey securing another speed buff steal.
myflin continues to get a little bit ahead despite Waldrom getting that first blood bounty in his favor. That's kind of stuff I'm talking about, Toli, when I say I want to see Optimus Gang play their own game and not play scared up against the world champs. Sometimes you're like, yeah, we should win this fight, right? But these guys are really good. There's no way they'll do this if we're going to win. But that was just the right position for Optimus Gang to take the fight, and they are not on top.
As a player, you just have to take every opponent for what they are right in front of you.
Turtle coming around the backside, knocks out myflin. The final judgment secures the kill, and myflin takes the second spill of the game for Obey. Delta Marine going to be able to survive, but the wraparound pays dividends, and Optimus Gang snag number 2 on the kills.
2 early kills for Optimus Gang, but yet again, just not taking advantage of the player counts and able to invade anything realistically, despite both speed and blue buff coming right around the corner for Obey Alliance.
But myflin has already respawned, pretty low respawn timer at this stage of the game. Lack of wards certainly hurting Obey in that scenario. None on that right-hand side, save 1 regular ward down by those fire elementals. MrTurtle stunned by Jelly, but no real damage coming out of Delta Marine quite yet. Does have his pen boots completed, but still working on what could be a Pythagoras piece here. Wouldn't be a bad pickup. Bancroft's Talon, usually what we see in this slot, but I think Pythags could work out well here, Tully.
I think Bancroft's would be the best option if you get low enough, but making the rotation, Predators trying to get the ultimate, forces the beats out of Delta Marine, finding the stun, but not enough follow-up, taking the speed and the blue for both myflin and IamDwurst. It was a 2-on-4, but still surviving in the mid tower.
2 ultimates burned there in exchange for Delta Marine's purification beads. That's a worth it scenario for Optimus Gang. Probably didn't need both ults in that situation, but it works out either way.
It depends if Obey start a team fight now with that circle protection, 5-on-3 ultimate advantage. Now, Oracles, though, going the way of Optimus Gang. Jelly getting pulled back in, forced into the meditation, and Air Cougar's right around the corner.
Jelly has not been able to play aggressive as he likes this game, at least with that meditation, has been forced to use it defensively. A little earlier on in that dual lane before the minions even met, and right there only hitting himself. Air Cougar has been pretty quiet so far this game, really been pushed under tower consistently by Welshbeast, who hits him with the Petrify. But the bad news for the Medusa is that there's reinforcements waiting. Knockup's good from the Typhoon. Welshbeast trying to trade it out 1v3, but myflin's gonna put the defending champs on the board, 2-1. Still in favor of Optimus Gang.
Recognizing that both Waldrom and Predators on the far right side of the map, putting all your tools and assets on the left. Obey, get on the scorecard, taking out Welshbeast. And just like you mentioned before, Air Cougar has been relatively quiet this game, but that's not to his fault. He's playing Rama at this point. He's trying to get the farm available before he gets that huge power spike, just now finishing off that Ikaval. And once he starts making these half rotations and with all the crowd control, those snipes are going to be confirmed every single time.
This draft for Obey really is just scary every time I look at it, the amount of lockdown. But if Optimus Gang can continue to take these outnumbered engagements or small numbered engagements, could end up being good. myflin gonna get the speed buff. 50-meter fly was looking to charge the ultimate, but doesn't end up firing it. Delta Marine doesn't have beads, but the final judgment misses. Doesn't matter. Predator is able to get credit for that kill. IamDwurst finds a 2-man stun, which sets up myflin to give himself his second kill. Both kills for Obey on their jungler, 2-1-0 for him, but Optimus Gang still edges out the kill total on top of them.
Waldrom is getting the worser end of things now, despite Optimus Gang taking out Delta Marine without his purification beads being available. They secure their own speed buff, but it doesn't matter if your jungler is just going to die with it anyway, not able to farm. myflin is going to hit level 12, getting that second relic before the Nemesis will.
Air Cougar still wants to take this boxing fight on the left side now that he got a kill and has that red buff over top of Welshbeast. This Welshbeast makes probably the play of the spring split on the console side of things, if you ask me. When he got that 1v3 double kill on the Anhur, if you remember, underneath his tower. Definitely has the capabilities of making these highlight reel plays, but we saw him get baited out on the left-hand side. Sometimes these guys who like to make the highlight reel plays, like to find the solo kills, can end up hurting themselves more so than anything else with their positioning.
Normally, whenever a hunter is aggressing on you in a 1v1, that means that backup is right around the corner. Whether or not they were the ones that would get the damage or the kill, there would be cleanup afterwards. So not respecting that, Welshbeast fell into the trap that Obey laid out for him, taking the bait, and still relatively even game thus far.
Gold Fury hasn't really been a point of contention so far. We're only 12 minutes in. But Oracle's due to respawn. Mr. almost hits that pull right there. Jelly finds 2 with the root, but Welshbeast able to dash out of danger. Jelly ends up taking quite a bit of poke in that little exchange. And no sustain really, well, they do have some sustain from the Terra, but doesn't quite match the potency of those Sylvanus Wisps.
Not having the Gauntlet of Thebes available to him quite yet, it's making him difficult to make these offensive engages than having to disengage and rely on any sort of heals. And with that, Optimus Gang can just continue to put pressure together, relying on that advantage from MrTurtle.
IamDwurst is hanging out in this middle lane in case a fight broke out around that Gold Fury. The Predators just gave him a little poke and walked on back to that solo. the slap fight between the Guardians soon to continue on that right side. We're almost 13 minutes in. Optimus Gang is on top of the defending world champion Obey Alliance in kills. The game's even in terms of gold. 19 is not a gold lead, nor is 47.
Neither one of those numbers means anything to either team. What really matters is one. Who is going to be the first one to get that gold here to really open the door? This is the point where both teams are getting their second relics available, hitting that level 12 marker. Only the Guardians are not available for that slot. Aircougar rolling in very aggressively, but with teammates right around the corner, welshbeastq electing to use that Petrify.
This does distract Cougar a little bit. A lot of tower poke there from those minions onto that tier 1 tower, and a good amount of farm lost by Aircougar, but I think you trade out a couple minions for the Medusa ultimate any day of the week. Still trying to take it to that Welsh Beast. Delta Marine in this mid lane is the reigning MVP on the console side of things. Had a great set at Worlds up against Soar, and really against their previous opponents as well, the semis and the finals. So you know this guy is going to be the real deal. Has basically been the premier mid laner on console for a full season at this point.
And switching things up between Season 3 and 4. Not normally known for his ISIS play. More electing to play the Hebos every now and then, these aggressive gods. Not necessarily the crowd control. Jelly taking a lot of poke, forced to retreat. And with Predators right around this corner, we're going to see some of these soul laners start making their presence known.
Meditation is available here for Jelly. Both soul laners, they've gotten Blink for this engagement. There's a Terra's Blessing, pops as Predators blinks right on top of Delta Marine, who's already taking a ton of damage. Tossed back into danger, not quite DeWorst. Gonna be able to find the first kill onto Mr. Turtle, courtesy of his ultimate, as Delta Marine's able to escape with 1 HP. With the help of Aircougar, Delta Marine gonna be able to knock down Predators with the fancy little Spirit Ball over the wall. 2 kills go the way of Obey, and the rest of Optimus Gang forced to back up.
Just like that, winning the team fight, Obey are now going for the gold here, but welshbeastq is around the corner. He has the Petrify. He's gonna stun out Jelly. He's gonna find 1 kill, but the question is, can he steal the gold?
Gold is very low. All 3 snipes hit from Cougar, who dashes forward and finds the rolling assault. Cougar cleans up the Hunter on the other side as myflin finds Waldrom after he knocks down Delta Marine. Either way, Obey end up with a delayed deicide. A couple kills do go the way of Optimus Gang, but not enough to stop Obey from getting the objective. 3,000 gold in the lead now.
Just like that. Even game into the door, wide open for Obey Alliance, the former defending world championship team. Optimus Gang, they were holding on and trying to make the plays. You know, they forced that goal here in a 5v5, thinking that they had the advantage having Mr. Turtle have the sustain, but Terra's Blessing and Meditate can counteract that.
A lot of extra movement speed, HP, get some CDR in there. Don't have to use mana for your abilities. A lot of different aspects of Terra's Blessing that make it difficult to handle. The initial engagement onto Delta Marine was pretty solid there, but Predators was the only one in that backline. I think if someone from Optimus Gang, whether it be Waldrom, whether it be welshbeastq with a flank, someone could have maybe helped out his soul laner there. Either way, Optimus Gang not quite able to take that team fight. And this is the problem when you go up against Obey. They'll wait, they'll play very patiently. They've always played very patiently, but they take the one opening you give them and they make you pay for messing up.
They have the experience. They don't really have to force the issue if the other team is going to try to go for it instead. They're just looking for any sort of little hole that they can stick their head through and look for any sort of advantages. And given the opportunity, Obey will capitalize on it. And we've been seeing just how aggressive Predators has dived there. And look at this, welshbeastq caught out yet again.
Again, the aggressiveness comes back to bite him. Cougs notches number 2 in the belt. Again against his Hunter opposition. Blink in for Predators and knocks up onto Delta Marine. No beads available, no life. Predators picks up number 2 for himself as Optimus Gang not only get the kill, but the tier 1 tower as well. A slight win there for the Europeans.
It was all a distraction. They all looked at welshbeastq, but it was Optimus Gang that really wanted to put pressure on the mid lane instead. Now, with those tier 1 mid towers gone in the mid and the left, Optimus Gang, they get that 1,000 gold back, and they're slowly climbing back into it. They could even look for this portal demon.
Down now only about 2,500 gold. Jelly gonna back after checking that portal demon, but that sentry ward coverage there enough to make sure that Obey knows exactly what Optimus Gang's plans are around that objective that's usually taken pretty soon after Gold Fury, sometimes traded out with Gold Fury. So it's just kind of the, if we can't get this objective, we'll at least get something in our pockets.
Around this point, in order to get Gold Fury, you're only going to lose about 50 to 100 gold per player. I would say like about 100 to 150 actually. So you're still getting something back in turn. As long as you're not losing too many players when you're defending the Gold Fury or securing the Portal Demon, Optimus Gang are still in a good spot to get some advantages in the lane. They have the tower push available and the 5-on-5 groupings with the Wisps.
Delta Marine does have this ultimate available to try and secure this objective if Obey chooses, and that is what they're going to go for. Circle of Protection and Typhoon both used in order to secure that Portal Demon. Definitely opens up a window, though, for Optimus Gang, Totally. That's a lot of big team fight ultimates on cooldown right now.
The only objective that they can go for without overextending too far for Optimus Gang is going to be that tier 1 on the right-hand side. That 500 gold is just screaming the name of the European teams, but not looking to do it quite yet. They are grouped up in mid, but look, Jelly right around the corner.
There is good news here for Optimus Gang if you're rooting for the European squad, and that's that they've got an excellent late-game composition. Those Sylvanus heals are going to continue to come into play throughout the game, but in particular, I'm looking at Waldrom on the Nemesis and 50-meter fly on that Thoth. Positioning has been pretty good thus far from 50-meter fly, and he's been known to make some big plays in this mid lane for Optimus Gang. Could be a big turning point later on.
Grouped up on the right side, IamDwurst blinking on in, trying to find the washing machine. Not finding anybody. Air Cougar in the sky, going to immune out some of the shots. Hitting out Welshbeastq, though, taking a lot of damage. Air Cougar getting another kill under his belt.
And they're all onto Welshbeastq. Cougs is done handling this guy in lane. He's just trying to chase him down. Even on the right side of the map, that 500 gold that was screaming the names of Optimus Gang, well, it was all just a bait. That tier 1 tower on the right still standing, and now those ultimates are coming up off cooldown. Typhoon ready to go. Circle of Protection almost there as well. Now it's Obey's turn to try and knock down a solo tower.
Obey recognized they had the weakness on that right-hand tower. Played perfectly with the rotation against Optimus Gang and 50-meter fly. Did a little bit of damage in that team fight, but not really making the same presence known that we're used to seeing out of this mid laner. So Obey Alliance still looking to play aggressive. Jelly gonna find the root, but no one else to follow up.
myflin wasn't even there after that engagement went Obey's way. He knew that that 500 gold was basically guaranteed for his team, so instead he goes over and takes about a wave and a half on the left, just continuing to push the lead that he's earned for himself in this farm. He's now a level up. He's got some penetration from the Jotun's Wrath, 30% CDR as well. Now working towards what's likely to be a Heartseeker. Could also be a Mass Immune. We've seen a little bit more of that recently, but either way, a lot more movement speed and power. That's what it comes down to.
And more movement speed equals more success for a Susano player. That's the whole goal, trying to move from point A to point B faster, and myflin wants to go fast. He's always been having the speed buff, and with all these speed buff invades, I think he might have a little bit of an addiction to the speed buff.
What jungler doesn't? That's the entire reason you play jungle. It's just, I want more speed buffs. Jungle is hard and annoying to play sometimes, and really it's just about, yeah, but you get a speed buff, so it makes it all worth it. Gold Fury started up by Optimus Gang. The pool was looking for myflin, but couldn't quite find a home. All of Obey still spread out and farming. And I'm taking a look at the items, Totally, and I'm loving this Stone of Gaia pickup by IamDwurst. It's there to immune the knockups from not only Predators, but also his Predator's ultimate. If they don't get that passive on cooldown, it'll keep him from getting picked up and plucked by that Whirlwind of Rage and Steel, but also that Wrath of Terra coming out of Sylvanus.
Not going to be able to engage the way he wants to on the Sylvanus. Mr. Turtle needs to find a different target than IamDwurst, but whenever he dives that backline, it's just going to be more obnoxious because now you're just going to be continuously using those tremors without any sort of real disruption.
You rarely have to rely on the CC from Thoth. That's about it. Until that Stone of Gaia passive goes on cooldown, no real way to get IamDwurst out of that channeling ability that is oh so disruptive in the middle of the team fights. Oracles do go the way of Optimus Gang, but that doesn't dissuade Obey from starting up the Gold Fury already about 50%. Typhoon is used as the Gold Fury gets leashed. A little bit of miscommunication there from Obey. They decided to back up without their jungler's ult.
IamDwurst was not in position, instead electing to invade the speed buff, preventing Waldrom from picking that up, limiting his mobility on the Nemesis, but still a lot of mobility considering he has the Wing Blade and the Stone Cutting Sword.
Delta Marine is in a ton of trouble, but uses the Aegis nicely. Not nice enough. Waldrom able to clean him up, but that uses 4 ultimates from Optimus Gang just to find a single kill onto the mid laner.
But they also deny the Circle of Protection in this next encounter for the next 35 seconds, which is why Optimus Gang are going straight to the Gold Fury. They know that myflin's ultimate's down as well.
Jelly gets pulled in. Let's listen to Optimus Gang as they take the fight to Obey.
Good chase, good chase. Yeah, chase. Go look for myflin. We take C2, right?
He's there, yeah, they're mad.
Yeah, portal, look portal.
We can group heal. Portal. In 1 second. Group. We can just push the wave up if we can't get this.
Let's do
Med's
this.
down. Their med's down.
Gold. Oh.
So demoralized was Optimus Gang, but they still look for a silver lining. They're going for the Portal Demon, but Delta Marine is available. He's not going to be in position to really contest this unless Obey can force the reset.
And Optimus Gang have no ultimates. On the side of Obey, they've got that Cabrakan ult, the Typhoon, and the Circle of Protection. There's the Blanket from IamDwurst, but only finds Mr. Turtle with that ult. Typhoon's going to knock up 3 from myflin, but everyone's just going to back up and heal for the time being. Predator still in that front line trying to keep Cougar and Delta Marine at bay, but Cougar, he's level 20 right now, just shredding through this tanky Xing Chen. Does bait them into pulling the Fire Giant, but doesn't get them off of him. 4-0-4 now for Cougar, who is just dominating this
There's
game.
just no answer from this late game hunter out of Air Cougar. Mr. Turtle trying to find the initiation, but not enough because IamDwurst is doing the same exact thing on the other side. Circle protection doing a lot.
Welsh Beast finds a huge Petrify and gets them out of danger. The snipes are going to have to be accurate, and Cougar going to be able to find it with the third. myflin cleans up Mr. Turtle. 3 dead for Optimus Gang, and Obey turn their sights to the Portal Demon.
Not able to find the silver lining. Optimus Gang, they dropped the Portal Demon, only able to take out IamDwurst. Great recognition from Delta Marine. As he respawned and headed towards that Portal Demon, he saw Predators flanking. Opted to go for the silence into the stun, preventing Air Cougar from getting engaged on. Both beats were burned by Delta Marine and Air Cougar to prevent getting pulled back into danger. And without any sort of help for Predators, they weren't able to get any of the squishies from Obey, finding multiple kills.
IamDwurst dies in that engagement, but deserves a ton of credit for his zone work, not only in terms of how far back he was keeping everybody, but he was controlling 4 members of Optimus Gang with those tremors. That set up Obey to not only get the objective later on, but realize they could fight right then, right when IamDwurst was just being that tanky Cabrakan in that front line. For me though, Tolly, the biggest storyline of this game has been Air Cougar. 5-0-4, continues to be accurate with the snipes. The positioning has been phenomenal as well, and really there just hasn't been an answer from Optimus Gang yet.
It's more about his decision making than anything else, because they were able to take advantage of Welsh Beast that put Air Cougar in the right spot at the right time. He was able to go up into the air, finding multiple kills, even helping to assist in that Gold Fury steal that was also important for Obey Alliance to keep this lead. And the consistent aggressive rolls from Air Cougar are just well timed. He's not putting himself out of position whenever he rolls forward.
Credit where credit's due. We're 25 minutes in. Obey's up by a pretty significant chunk of gold, about 7,000, up 12 to 8 in kills, but Optimus Gang has looked really solid for their showing here at LAN. A lot of these guys here at LAN for the first time, and they've looked pretty good while doing it. There's the ultimate out of Predators. Remember, Delta Marine doesn't have beads, but he does have the Aegis. Can't quite get back to a circle of protection, though, because Welsh Beast turns him to stone with that Petrify. myflin trying to make something happen on the back line here for Obey, while IamDwurst is running for his life from the rest of Optimus Gang, who was not distracted by the jungler. A clean pick right now, but the Fire Giant is getting started?
They need to start something because Air Cougar's on the left getting the Phoenix. All ultimates are down from Optimus Gang. They're going to peel off of the Fire Giant, but Air Cougar gets the left Phoenix the whole time. Jelly's going to try to zone out the rest of the Fire Giant attempt.
And he got the Aegis out of 50-meter fly. He almost killed him and the Phoenix. 2-man knockup from Predators, but immediately gets stunned out by IamDwurst. Jelly and IamDwurst just too tanky, even with the good setup from the solo laner. And while Air Cougar does his thing on the left, Obey distracts Optimus Gang long enough on the right.
This is the difference of experience in the LAN environment between Obey Alliance and Optimus Gang. So veteran is this roster that's been together for almost a year, I would say, if not more. This roster has been so solid working together. They're willing to sacrifice Delta Marine. They're willing to almost sacrifice Fire Giant if that means they're going to get the most valuable dual lane Phoenix.
And that's so important because it's the dual lane Phoenix, like you just mentioned, Tolly. Now Optimus Gang has to worry the entire time that Phoenix is down about the Fire Giant. and they have to do that balancing act. And when you're at land for the first time, it's even more difficult to stay focused on the bigger picture, just like Kruger was able to do there.
Especially when everybody's just yelling across from each other. How can you possibly focus? You balance out the respawning of your Phoenix versus defending the Fire Giant, having to rely on maybe your Soul Laner to do that because you have the teleport. Kruger going to start up this Fire Giant with Jelly while the rest of his team zones.
Fire Giant right around 50%. Circle of Protection goes down from Delta Marine. Typhoon being used as well to secure it, and Obey are able to secure that Fire Giant, no problem whatsoever. Easy peasy. Third objective of the game, but the first Fire Giant for the defending champs.
Obey started that up because they saw a 50-meter fly on the left side defending those fire minion waves, and without that big bursty magical mage in the mid lane at the team fight, taking a 4-on-5 fight was not something that Obey was afraid of.
Now Gold Fury is started by Obey. That's going to get secured. Another burst of gold for Obey, who really haven't dominated the team fights. They've won the majority of them, Tolly, but Optimus Gang has had a pretty good team fighting composition here. They've been communicating well, I think. It's just a matter of the experience. Like you mentioned, objective control has always been Obey's biggest strength, moving back to Season 2 when it was just IamDwurst, Cougar, and Jelly together with Matt Koiz and Sam Bam. Objective control has always been one of the strong points of their game, and they're showing exactly what that can do for a team here today.
And it just seems they have more space control in their composition here. The Circle of Protection makes it very difficult for a lot of these squishies to dive the backline. Waldrom has to be so mindful about how he engages, whether or not he wants to blow up that ultimate at the right time. Does he go on Delta Marine, or does he try to just blow up a Guardian instead?
I mean, Cougar has also been just had free reign of this game on this ROM. You mentioned it. He's been rolling aggressively, but has really not been punished for it because he's holding it for the right time. A lot of heads-up play from Cougar, as well as just, I think, a lack of focus from Optimus Gang onto what has really been the problem for them so far.
Right-hand tower, tier 2, gonna go down. Optimus Gang not wanting to fight this one, still having to worry about that left side fire wave, and with Fire Giant buff for 2 more minutes around the waist of Obey Alliance, they're looking to siege their second Phoenix.
myflin has the Blink as his second relic. No Aegis for the already mobile jungler. Susano needed help with engagement, though, Tolly. I mean, we can all agree with that, right?
Yeah, of course, right? Because, like, who needs Jetstream into the pull? Let's just straight up blink and then Jetstream away.
But now he could cover an entire lane, basically. He can blink, Jetstream you, and then you're in real trouble. Or he can throw out the Jetstream, turn around, and then teleport back to it and then blink.
Not to mention he also has the Stormkata dash on the third strike, dashing in his Predators, not finding a knockup on anyone.
Stun doesn't hit home there for Delta Marine, but it does from Jelly. Right side Phoenix respawns for Optimus Gang. That's their left side, but 50-meter fly is under siege from the snipes. Cougar with the accuracy, but not quite enough damage to knock him down. Turtle getting shredded, but finds the pull onto Cougar. Big Petrify coming out of Welsh Beast, but it's just not enough. Delta Marine knocks down Turtle. Welsh Beast does find a kill on the backside onto myflin. This right side Phoenix falls, but Delta Marine does as well. Welsh Beast gonna pick up a triple for himself. Quadra almost. His 50-meter fly takes it from him, but it could be a deicide here. Obey might lose all 5.
Nice little Aegis. Welsh Beast, though, does take a spill. Not going to find the pentakill, but IamDwurst will get taken out more than likely. Finally taking a spill, but that right side Phoenix fell during the siege. The left side did also get collapsed upon with all those fire minions.
And the Titan's going to take a good chunk of damage here, Tolly. You got 2 waves to worry about in terms of where these fire minions are coming from. But Optimus Gang fight back, almost even the kill total, now 15-14. Obey still in the lead there. Certainly in the lead in terms of the map objectives go. Optimus Gang still have to worry about knocking down 3 tier 2 towers, as well as all 3 Phoenixes.
Feeling very confident, Obey Alliance, with this 14,000 goal lead, still having Fire Giant at that time. They wanted to continue to siege that right Phoenix, potentially sacrificing themselves, because that 2 Phoenixes that are down for about 2 or 3 minutes remaining is going to allow Obey Alliance to get this next important Fire Giant, to get the last remaining Phoenix, and then start sieging that Titan.
Again, Welsh Beast, though, with Optimus Gang, he's 6 kills. He's been a part of 9 of Optimus Gang's 14. What he was lacking in positioning in the early game, he's almost made up for in terms of these team fight petrifies. They've come up huge just about every time so far.
And despite the circular protection from Delta Marine, it just wasn't enough to really counteract a lot of the damage from Optimus Gang. Not truly respecting the damage out of the Phoenix on the right-hand side, but still Optimus Gang with this kind of a deficit can't leave their base left unattended.
Only the middle Phoenix there in order to defend their base. Fire Giant about to be up in right about 20 seconds. Waldrom caught out in an awkward position, but with that Wing Blade and the speed buff and the extra movement speed from the Stone Cutting Sword, I don't think he's too worried about Jelly chasing him down. All of Obey here and healthy. A lot of them still have relics. Delta Marine died with both of his relics still up, so he's going to be able to be safe in this next engagement.
Fire Giant has respawned. Obey Alliance are positioning themselves around it with aggressive sentry wards, denying any sort of vision from Optimus Gang, but I'm sure they weren't even going to bother contesting this one. With this kind of a deficit that they have, having to defend 2 lanes of fire minions, having to concede this Fire Giant, Obey Alliance are looking to close it out.
They also did just defend the last Fire Giant siege on the right side. I mean, they got a deicide. They only lost 3 members there, so I don't blame Optimus Gang for being passive in terms of the middle part of the map objective for the Fire Giant. Cannot afford to be passive on this Phoenix, though. Fire minions pouring in from the left and the right. Both waves still pretty pushed. Optimus Gang didn't really get a chance to knock those down too far. Let's listen in to the defending world champions Obey Alliance as they try and siege this middle Phoenix.
I'm trying to heal up.
You have Divine on you for now.
Bro.
Go shell. Shake it on the left. Still Phoenix.
Go on the side, go on the side. Drop on the side. Drop on the side. We're good. Come.
Obey take game 1 in what was not as close as many people, which was closer, I should say, than a lot of people probably thought. Obey end up taking that one pretty easily, just because myflin just decides he's done with this game and goes over and solos what was the problem for them in the Medusa.
They're just all laughs and giggles at the end there. myflin putting on a great performance on the Susano. I'm sure heading into game 2, Optimus Gang cannot allow this jungler such an aggressive option.
There is a lot to work with there for Optimus Gang, though, Tully. I mean, they did not get blown out of the water by any stretch here. I think you're right. If with a little bit of a tweak to picks and bans, they've got a real chance at taking it to Obey.
It was relatively even until that first Gold Fury fight encounter where Obey Alliance were able to really get the better end of this European team.
That's absolutely true. We've got a desk in order to break all this good stuff down for us, as well as share some of the best replays from game number 1 where Obey get off to an early start up against Optimus Gang. It's Taco and Tom on the desk.
Thanks so much, Aggro. And in fact, I would have to agree. I do think that initial Gold Fury fight is what really changed the pacing of that game overall.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was 21 minutes in, and this one looked like it was neck and neck. Surprisingly, I kind of set the table as this is going to be an easy one. We'll see you later. But Optimus Gang, they kind of came in for a number of reasons in the European scene, and they did impress some people. So they looked strong, but this was the one a little bit later here. And this is just kind of all messy. And then bang, Obey are able to steal away the Gold Fury thanks to the prowess and the accuracy of Mr. Air Cougar on that ROM.
And what I really liked from the rest of Obey is they were able to secure the objective, get the solid steal, and then completely disengage. And we saw it at the Portal Demon where Optimus tried to force this, but by then Delta Marine had respawned, and since he was able to participate in the fight, this just spelled complete disaster for Optimus Gang.
Yeah, this was just really rough stuff, as we like to say, for OGs. You can already see they're trailing by a number of thousands of gold, and just one kill is all the room that Obey really needed. And then IamDwurst just controlled a bunch of people, and then there's a huge ultimate from Medusa, but it just doesn't matter. Welshbeastq picks up 1 or 2, but Obey Alliance, they're ultimately able to take the Portal Demon, take out a couple of players, there's another kill, and exit the team fight.
And that night was just absolutely on point from Air Cougar, especially to secure it onto a Nemesis, who's a fairly mobile god. So just excellent snowball, and once you give such a veteran team such as Obey Alliance the opportunity to run away with the game, that's exactly what they're going to do every time. And I do just have to bring it back. We've seen it so many times already. EU just keeps permitting Susano to go through, and I just don't want to see any more Susano in the hands of these NA junglers because, by golly, they are dangerous.
Yes, they definitely are. By golly, Susano just a little bit too dang strong. Very crazy. You've been hanging out with aggro a little bit too much there, girl.
I heard it all the same for everybody, but he's starting to grow on me, and you know, a little bit of a fat egg. It could happen.
I thought you were still talking about Sylvanus growing like a tree.
No, not quite. No Sylvanuses were able to make a difference this time around, but like I've mentioned, Tom, I just don't want to see any of the Susano gameplay further into the second set. I think that if Optimus Gang want that potential, I mean, it's there. You can definitely tell that they are willing to fight back. They don't consider this an easy, we're going to get 2-0 set. They want a win. They want to represent EU and do what Rival were unfortunately unable to and secure that victory against an NA team.
You know, I can't help but think about what if? If Osric was here, I think that first Gold Fury doesn't go the way of Obey. I think it goes the way of Optimus Gang. I think that this is a completely different story if Osric's here, and I'm upset that he's not, because I think that Optimus Gang had a really big chance at being the guys that can kind of set a different statement. With that said, looking at what we got to deal with in game number 1, I'm definitely changing my tone up here. I had kind of written this team off originally after seeing what they did in game number 1. Despite the loss, Taco, I think that this can be a very exciting game number 2. I think they could actually bring us to a 3.
And this does funnel back into that original mindset where Obey aren't trying to take this as any sort of easy-going matchup. Optimus Gang has, I think, kind of proven themselves as a threat. Yeah. If you overlook them and don't believe that they're going to, you know, try to be that aggressive stance against you, then they could certainly find the upper hand in a lot of these compositions in teamfight scenarios.
Exactly. 50-meter fly and welshbeastq specifically can do a lot. We saw welshbeastq get the triple kill before he just walked into a Cabrakan and died for no reason. But before that, he was looking really good. He had a number of strong ultimates out of the Medusa, which I think is very, very important if you're going to be playing. And then mrturtlei, the support player here, absolutely plays a key factor as to what his team's able to do.
I think that in game number 1 as well, mrturtlei was actually a huge factor as far as helping Waldrom get a little bit more of that comfort inside of the jungle role, because when you introduce a sub, especially to your roster, and you're not playing with your full lineup, that can be a mentality thing like we've touched on before. But honestly, looking at game number 1, I don't think that Optimus Gang looked like a team that was playing with a sub, and I know we can toy around with what ifs all day long, but personally, I feel as though Waldrom performed probably to the best of his ability, and that was just a series of unfortunate events that led to the downfall. Yeah,
I mean, it was a little bit rough, but I mean, we can totally play what if all day, and I'm down to play it because I think Osric was the star of this team. And moving away from the what if scenario, if he had been here, and the what we have here, Optimus Gang, like you said, it's a mental thing. Their star player not being present has to play into how they're feeling, and it's just a little bit rough for OGs. And it's up to Waldrom to really be the guy to do the heavy lifting here mentally. Maybe not in-game, but at least mentally. He has to come to the table and say, look, I know I'm not Osric, but I can do this, and I'm here to play.
Well, I can get behind that. And speaking of star players, we do have a Jelly on the opposite side of things, facing off against mrturtlei in that dual lane support role. And overall, Jelly has just been one of those key factors every single time for Obey. Just all the setup potential that he provides to not only Delta Marine, but myflin, Air Cougar. Just he's almost always there when the fight is going down, and that is such a crucial aspect to have in a support.
Not just present inside the game, but even touching back to what I was saying about Osric and Waldrom, Jelly is always mentally checked in. Players can sometimes kind of, you've been there, you'll play yourself. You can kind of, I've been playing for long, right? It's been a long day. This is the last set. They haven't been playing all day, but they've been here all day. Jelly's the guy that's going to make sure that his team is still wrangled in, ready to play. He's been doing that for a long time now. He's played different positions on the team, and now that he's back in his support role, I think that allows him to be that sort of voice of reason that the squad needs.
Obey maintaining their player discipline at this stage would be a really strong key point for them because it would show that they're prepared, I think, to go the long haul, to try and find themselves ultimately in Sunday's finals matchups and progressing through tomorrow's semifinals should they make it and close out the 2-0 here.
Yeah, I mean, in Obey's mind, this is supposed to happen, right? If you ask Optimus Gang, I think they're sitting there saying, all right, listen, we have a really big task ahead of ourselves. We hope to beat Obey. Obviously, they're going to say that they're going to beat Obey. But at the end of the day, I think Obey are sitting here saying, listen, this is the way the story is supposed to happen, and it's the world against us. So when you have that mentality, when you're bringing that to the table, it's not just confidence. It's baked into your very being. And that's why Obey has been successful for a number of years.
Realistic.